This is a quick video showing you how to make a filter pipette, which can be very useful for drying small amounts of solvent as well as removing small particles from small amounts of solvent when you don't want to lose a lot of liquid by having it absorb onto a piece of filter paper. So one of the things you're going to need is you're going to need two pipettes. At least one of the pipettes needs to be a long pipette so that you can use that pipette to push this small piece of cotton down into the second pipette. We're using a short pipette here, but we could use another long pipette. Note we want to use a relatively small piece of cotton because we don't want to overfill the pipette, and also we don't want to lose our liquid, much of our liquid, by having it absorb into the cotton. So you take the small piece of cotton, which you can see somewhat right here, and insert it into the top of the pipette you're going to use to make the filter pipette. Then you use, shown here, you use your long pipette to push that cotton down into the pipette that's going to become the filter pipette. Here I'm showing a filter pipette that's already packed with the cotton, so you've taken that long pipette and you've packed the cotton down inside. Now you don't want it to be too tightly packed. Remember, you want liquid to be able to pass through that, but you want it to be tightly packed enough that no solid particles can fall through the cotton. So it's a fine balance, but with practice you will figure out how to do that. As I said, we could now use this pipette to filter out if we had a sample that had some small particles in it that we wanted to fill out, like a really small sample. Like later on we'll see, we're going to use a technique called nuclear magnetic resonance, or NMR, and sometimes you might want to use this to filter NMR samples if they've got particles in them. But also we want to use it to perhaps dry our liquid somewhat. And here we're using a drying agent, anhydrous sodium sulfate, and we're going to add some of this to the filter pipette. And the purpose of the anhydrous sodium sulfate is that as we draw the liquid or pass the liquid through the pipette, the sodium sulfate will absorb the water from the liquid and allow dry liquid to pass through. So the easiest way to get your drying agent into your pipette is to just place, and what you can see here is I've placed the open end of the pipette in the jar of the solid, and then you tilt it up and you can see I've got a small amount of the solid that I've picked up in the pipette. Then all I have to do is take that pipette and I'm going to tap the tip of the pipette, that's what I'm doing right here, tap it on the counter, and that will just pack down the solid. And here you can see that the solid has fallen to the bottom of the pipette, and once that's happened, then I might want to go back and get a little bit more. So I can pick up a little bit more of the solid. Usually I want between 1 and 1.5 inches of drying agent. This does not have to be exact. We're not weighing out this drying agent or anything like that. Just about an inch and a half is a good amount. So once I've picked up that additional drying agent, I can tap it down again. And now I have a nicely packed filter pipette, and you can see I've got about 1.5 inches or 3 to 4 centimeters of packing material, and I'm ready to filter. So now all I need to do is clamp it over my receiving vial or flask. In this lab we're going to use a 20 milliliter what's called a scintillation vial. We could also use a round bottom flask, it doesn't matter.